Steve Gardner's Weekly Spot. Always good to talk with him. Kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Does a great job covering baseball for USA Today. Joins us at 12:30 on a Wednesday instead of tomorrow because we got a ton of baseball to get into. Steve, how you been, pal?
I'm frazzled already. What a start to the postseason, huh?
Oh, absolutely. What did you make of that game last night? I mean, the Cubs had numerous chances to win, and I knew Colorado was a good defensive team, but you watched that infield make some of those plays and take some hits away from the Cubs last night. That was impressive. And small ball, that's a grinded out type of win for the Colorado Rockies. But if you're a Cubs fan, you're probably kicking yourself. You are probably kicking yourself today.
Yeah, because, 2 games ago, you had the best record in the National League. And then, just like that, poof, out of the playoffs. And it's got to be disappointing, especially for a Cubs team that has gone to the NLCS the last 3 years and won a World Series. I kind of feel for the Cubs fans, but then again, there are lots of teams that haven't even sniffed that. So it was a tough way for them to bow out for sure.
Yeah, you got the Yankees and the A's tonight. I'm a little surprised he's going to go with Severino. Well, I'm not surprised because I get what Boone's thinking is, but I think we both got to agree Severino's got a very, very short hook, a very short leash tonight. Even last year in the same spot, 6 batters, 5 got on base, 3 scored runs. So I'm a little, I don't want to say nervous with Severino, but I get the thinking is, does he get pulled if he puts 2 on early on, or does Boone let him try to fight through it?
It would seem to me that Boone would not take him out until he'd given up a couple of runs. I think a pitcher of Severino's caliber deserves a chance to at least pitch through a little bit of trouble. That said, if it happens in the 4th inning or the 5th inning, then I think you're going to see a quick hook. Really, Rich, the A's are going with this, with the opener and the bullpen strategy. The Yankees could do exactly that. And, their bullpen is so strong, it's better than anybody else's in baseball. The Yankees could go to the bullpen in the 4th inning and have the matchups and have overpowering advantages over the A's all the way through to the 9th. So, yeah, I think the one mistake that Aaron Boone can make tonight is to go too long with Luis Severino and let him give up, 3 runs or leave with 3 runs in and 2 on base or something like that. He's got to go to the bullpen immediately at the first sign of trouble.
No, I agree, and I think this is kind of the spot where you kind of miss Girardi because he kind of had more of a gut feel on how to manage the rotation in the bullpen as well. But you got to give Boone the benefit of the doubt. I know he's had an up and down year, and then conversely, you look at the job that Bob Melvin has done. Tremendous job. I mean, whether you're a rookie, whether you're a vet, he's treating all these guys the same. And I said a little while ago, to me, I think the turning point of their season, you got to go back to June. Lowry decides to go to third. Melvin makes some moves, doesn't disrupt the flow of the ball club. They take 2 out of 3 from the Angels, I believe, during that series, and away you go. So he's done a tremendous job with the A's this year.
Most definitely. I think he's hands down. There's been some great managing jobs done this season, but I think Bob Melvin has done the best of anyone in either league, really, in getting the most out of this roster, which is, basically we're going to see a lot of unfamiliar names, especially for those that are just casual baseball fans. I don't know that you could pick out anybody on that A's roster and say, oh, yeah, that's whoever it is. Maybe it's Blake Trinan or somebody like that, but this is just a team that fits so well together, plays so well together. They use the advantages that they have, whether it's lefty-righty hitters or lefty-righty pitchers in the bullpen, and they make the most out of everything they can. It's a scrappy team, and I think you can't help but, unless you're a Yankee fan, but root for them because of their underdog status.
We mentioned the Brewers, kind of sneaky good, and you look at their lineup, a little soft at the bottom, but you talk about the starting rotation and the bullpen, and all of a sudden you still got some veteran bats there. I like this matchup, and I'm still trying to figure out the series because I know Colorado can score some runs as well, but can you see, who do you give the edge to between the Rockies and the Brewers?
I think the Brewers are clearly better, and I think while the Rockies have some great starting pitching, at least the 1-2 punch, they're going to be so tired after having to go through the play-in game and the wild card game, and then travel to Milwaukee for games 1 and 2. And the Brewers' biggest strength is their bullpen. I think
yes, absolutely.
At least from a pitching standpoint. And so to have those guys rested and Josh Hader able to throw, 2 innings and Jeremy Jeffress another and Corey Knebel another, shorten the game again, I think that's going to be the story of the postseason, as it's been for the last couple. And the team with the best bullpen generally is the one that has the advantage.
Do you give the Braves a shot here against the Dodgers? And I'm curious to know, are you surprised that Kershaw's not going to start Game 1? They'll start him in Game 2. Roberts decides to go to him Game 2.
I'm a little surprised. In the aftermath of the Dodgers-Rockies game, I wrote something looking ahead to what each team faces. And it seemed to me that Kershaw was the logical choice to start Game 1, and Roberts was non-committal to that even after that game. So it tells you that something's up. Maybe the extra day of rest makes Kershaw a better pitcher. But I'll tell you, I think the Braves could surprise in this series. I think it goes the distance and maybe, ends up being the Dodgers in 5. But I see this as very competitive. I also see this as potentially the coming out party for Ronald Acuna, who has been so great this season. And we've only gotten to see little glimpses of him. Folks in the in the NL East have seen too much of him, maybe.
Right.
But this is something, a national stage. The entire baseball world will get a chance to see just what a talent he is. So anytime you get those situations, guys can rise to the occasion and kind of take over. I think he could be one of those guys that could do it. And
the only reason I brought up Kershaw is because, again, if you lose when I'm out there and say you're down 2-1 in the series, you're going to have to throw him out there because that's saving the series. You can't fall behind 3-1. You can't.
Yeah, then I guess the one thing that you do by starting him in Game 2 is you have Kershaw available for Game 5. Mm-hmm. And, if it gets that far, you have to get that far first.
Sure.
But at least he gets to pitch in the first 2 games, and he'll be available for Game 5.
Regardless of what happens tonight, I think the series, listen, if it's the Yankees and the Red Sox, I'll be into that. You know that. But if the Yankees falter tonight, I'm going to be locked in on the Astros and the Indians. You got the defending World Series champs in Houston. You got the Indians, who are just a very good baseball team, and everyone's trying to wait for them to get, just that last little hill to climb, get over the hump a little bit. And to me, this has the makings of what could be an epic, just a classic series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for everybody if this it only goes 5 games. I think this is the potential to be one of those classic series like you were talking about. That can go back and forth, the momentum can switch and everything, and to have it a best of 5, I think it deprives baseball fans of what could be just some fantastic baseball. I think this could in fact be maybe not an AL pennant showdown here, that the team that wins this wins the pennant. I think the team that wins that particular division series between the Astros and the Indians could be the World Series champs. I think it's that important.
You had a couple notable names fired and stepped down. You had the issue with Molitor and then Sosa, which I don't know if that's more surprising or that was, I guess, expected. 19 seasons and almost unceremoniously just decide step down. He's going to retire. Is that it for Mike Scioscia?
I think so. It's been a wonderful run for him. I can't imagine what that long ago when he first took over that team. How much has changed in the game of baseball since then. But it's been a great run, and the ownership has changed during his managerial tenure. The front office has changed, and at this point, I'm sure that he's probably tired of having to deal with all of those changes, and he's certainly earned the ability to go out on his own terms. So I think Mike Scioscia could be, we could be seeing, the retirement of a Hall of Fame manager. I think he certainly built up some great credentials. And as for Molitor in Milwaukee or in Minnesota, manager of the year one year in the playoffs, and a terrible year the next, and you're out. I think again, it's another product of the front office changing and wanting to maybe bring in somebody of their own. And Molitor was the casualty there.
Yeah. What about Buck? What's going to happen there?
I can't see him coming back for another season. They let him manage in the final year of his contract. I think that was kind of a let him, not unceremoniously fire him or anything like that. I think it was just let it play out. And at the end of this season, his worst ever, the Orioles' worst ever, it just makes a lot of sense to do everything over and start fresh. And unfortunately, he's the casualty there.
Yeah, and I know it does look like he's not. I mean, like you said, and you called it before, he's not going to be back with them in any capacity. Lastly, on the Phillies, Clintack came out and made the statement again. The fan base has to be patient. They have a lot of money to spend, and I think. Sometimes you can swing and you can miss and you can spend money and you at least let the fans, and I know there's a disconnect and I get it, and I know that attendance is down across the board in baseball. I totally understand that. But that being said, I don't think the fan base in our backyard wants to hear, again, be patient. Because if you have the money and you can go out and at least swing for the fences, that's an attempt to let the fan base know you're trying to put a competitive product on the field.
Yeah, and I mean they did that last off season. I think there's room to take that next step. And let's face it, Rich, I mean all of these teams have an awful lot of cash, and whether they choose to spend it or whether they say that we're not making as much money as we could be, or we're a smaller market because we're not making the kind of money that the Yankees are, we don't have the TV deal that the Mets do or something like that. These teams are all very, very wealthy. They can spend whatever they want, and it's just a matter of, you look at when the Detroit Tigers under Mike Ilitch spent constantly and every time tried to put a winning team on the field. They never rebuilt, really. They just kept adding on and retooling and came so close. I think a lot of you could probably maybe say that about 28 of the 30 teams. They could do that if they wanted to. And I think the Phillies now in a situation where you've got a little bit of a taste of competing, which they did for essentially 5 out of the 6 months. Now it's time to take that to the next level. And that's what they'll need to do to make the team better and the franchise better, and to make the fans feel better about the team that's on the field. Go into this off season and be aggressive, because the division, it seems to me, is there for the taking. They can compete.
I agree. All right, I know. Pardon me. This is your early Christmas for you, so enjoy it tonight. Tomorrow we will talk next week. Always appreciate a little insight, and certainly enjoy the games and look forward to your writings on them as well. Always appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks, Rich. Take care.